Hello, my name's Rod Matthews, and I believe that we'll be getting together on the 16th and 17th of July at the Team Effectiveness and Communication Workshop. And as I see it, we have an excellent opportunity to do a number of things. Firstly, to look at what it is we can do to reduce the stress and frustration that can sometimes be associated with dealing with people, working with people who at best seem to have a different agenda to yours, at worst seem to be out and out trying to sabotage your day. We also have an excellent opportunity to look at what it is we can do to increase the likelihood that things get done right first time, and therefore to reduce the amount of time we spend fixing errors on rework, fixing things up that didn't go right. And we also have an excellent opportunity to look at what makes the difference. What makes the difference between a good team, a good place to work, and an excellent team, a fantastic place to work. What is it that's happening here that doesn't happen there? How can we do more of this? How we can do less of that, perhaps? Excellent opportunity to talk through these issues. Because as I see it, team effectiveness and communication skills is a critical issue. Chemistry, biology, and history would all suggest that life moves towards a greater degree of complexity. Chemistry tells us that simple chemicals combine to become complex chemicals. Complex chemicals combine to become the simplest of life forms. Biology tells us that simple life forms need to meet the challenges of the environment in which they are living in order to survive. And in order to do this, they further develop their degree of complexity until they become complex animals like humans. And history would suggest to us that tribes become chieftains, become cities, become states, become nations, become trading blocs. In one of the best tools, it seems, that we have in order to be able to grow, in order to be able to survive, in order to be able to meet the challenges that evolution throw in our direction, one of the best tools that we have is to come together with a common purpose, to divide the labour, and to be able to work effectively together in order to achieve that common purpose. And so when we get together on the 16th and 17th of July, we have an excellent opportunity to look at how it is that we are currently working and dividing the labour in order to work together effectively to achieve our common purpose. And there's a number of challenges that start to arise when we ask people to start to come together as a group and to divide the labour and to work effectively together. A number of challenges arise. And those challenges tend to be largely around the issue of rights. My rights and your rights, and how that plays out, where my rights begin and end, and where your rights begin and end. A lot of the challenges that we face seem to revolve around these issues. And one way of looking at it is to suggest that there's a number of different ways that people prefer to deal with these challenges. One way is in an aggressive way, and this is where I perceive that my rights are more important than your rights, and you just need to do what it is that I tell you. Nothing that could possibly be going on for you could be more important than what it is I'm asking you to do. That's an aggressive, perhaps, response. The opposite to that is the submissive response. This is where we go, okay, your rights are more important than my rights. If you say it, if you need it, then it's more important than anything I have going on at this particular point in time, so I need to make it happen for you, is a submissive response. And then somewhere in between, if we think of this as a continuum, somewhere in between is the assertive response, where we have the series of behaviours, it's a language, it's a tone of voice that would suggest that my rights are as important, no more, no less, than your rights. And if you think of this as a continuum, indeed, and if you have a continuum from aggressive through to submissive, and if your preference is down this end of things, and when we get together and we look at some tools and techniques and behaviours that exist down that end of the spectrum in comparison to where your preference is, then you will probably look at that preference and you'll go, oh, for goodness sake, can we just all get on with what we know needs to be done? For goodness sake, can we just not faff about and can we just start moving? Is probably what your response will be. Keep in mind that that response is reflecting where your preference is in comparison to this spectrum. The opposite may also be true. Your preference may be down this end of the spectrum. And so therefore, when we get together and we look at tools, techniques, tones of voice, behaviours that exist further down that end of the spectrum than your preference, you will look at those behaviours and you'll go, oh, Rod, I couldn't possibly do that. No, that's just not me. No, really, I couldn't possibly say that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that. That will be your preference. That will be your response, rather. And what it reveals is perhaps where you prefer to sit on that spectrum. And I guess where all of this arrives to in the end for me is one of my favourite sayings is, if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, then everything is going to look like a nail. And it isn't. If you have a preference to operate down one end of those spectrums, every situation, every interaction is going to look like that preference is the way to deal with the situation. And it isn't. Sometimes the aggressive response is the way to deal with things. Sometimes we have laws, rules, legislation that allows us to continue to operate that we have to abide by, in which case that is more important. And other times we are human. Things are happening in our lives, things are happening to us that are more important than what work requires at this particular point in time. And most of the time, often, we need to come together somewhere in the middle and we need to have a conversation around what are your rights, what are my rights, and in order to be able to effectively deal with the situation. So when we get together, we have an excellent opportunity to be able to work through things like this so that we are able to increase the likelihood that Aon Benfield's China is able to come together with a common purpose, is able to divide the labour, and is able to work together effectively to do more than just survive, to be able to grow in the complex market that you operate in. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the day. See you later.